Well, it's time for Ken Griffin to officially make the turn. Extremely excited to have Ken Griffin here in our Make the Turn studios as, well, a big announcement that you just put out there on LinkedIn, and I think got deservedly so a ton of great traction that you are going to be walking away after almost 20 years with BOYNE Resorts, both on the ski side and the golf side from a marketing and sales perspective. First of all, welcome. And secondly, congratulations, Ken.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me in the studio. I mean, I've been looking forward to seeing this place for the last month or so, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the
Absolutely.
opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. Let's start with a little bit more, I guess, on your background, because it is interesting. You almost, I don't want to say stumbled into golf, but you started more on the ski side, correct? And here you are over the last, what, 10 years almost?
Well, I was hired 18 years ago to be director of snow sports marketing, and that was after a long over 25-year career on the ski industry side. So my shtick was, and we were talking a little bit before we went on, is that after 25 years of calling on BOYNE, competing with BOYNE, or working with BOYNE in some capacity, 18 years ago I went to work for BOYNE. So how many people at age 48 could go to work having spent your entire career in this side of the industry? And then, that what started out as ski and then morphed to adventure sports, then morphed to resort marketing. And now the last 10 years on the golf side. And, it's been new and interesting every day. Golf has grown, obviously, especially since COVID. But I mean, as you said, BOYNE has grown, both on the ski side, the largest privately held snow sports resort company in the United States, now with the 10 resorts across the U.S., and on the golf side with 14 golf courses now in the U.S., 11 of them up in northern Michigan. So it's been a great ride.
Obviously, it's been great getting to know you and, great friendship and partnership over the years. But right smack dab in the middle of really your last 10 years was, as you mentioned, this golf boom that came out of nowhere. I don't even want to say the word or the reason why that happened, but BOYNE has taken off. It really has, and it's become this kind of arms race in the golf world where resorts are upgrading and courses are spending money. Private clubs, are doing assessments and making renovations and updates and changes to everything. I guess how eye-opening and how fun was that for you to kind of spearhead, from a marketing perspective in the golf side, as BOYNE has really elevated the game, I would say, over the last 10 years.
No, it's been tremendous. I mean, back during COVID, we weren't sure what that year was going to look like. In fact, we thought it was going to break a record streak of being successful in golf, and in fact, it hasn't. Last year was the 11th revenue record in a row. And that included the COVID year. It was just amazing how it spun up because nobody could go to work. You could work remotely. Golf season carried. We had a great, like most things, when it's good, it's usually good because a number of things come together. That September and October were spectacular from a weather standpoint, and we ended up even then. But, both on the golf side and the ski side, I'm fortunate to work for a company that reinvests and doesn't just pocket. And by reinvesting, whether it's in, rebuilding a third of the Donald Ross Memorial over the last 5 years, or whether it's putting in new ski lifts, at all the resorts, including the resorts in Michigan over the last couple of years. It's fun to sell whenever you're always selling new product. I mean, my whole career, I've always been fortunate to have good products to sell. And, many of your listeners and viewers are familiar with Bernie Friedrich, because he's a longtime senior vice president for us, and still works, for us even since he retired, and was replaced with Josh Richter, who'd been there 25 years. So the tenure of employees, the consistency, but always trying to have a better experience for somebody the next time they come than the last time they were there. And it goes a long way. And from a marketing standpoint, how more ideal? I always have something new to sell, and it's a good product.
Well, and to your point, gosh, checking in at the Highlands, you're welcomed with a a glass of champagne. And I always like to say, because when I would come up, probably 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it's been, my golf trip is going on 12 years. It's crazy, but I would come up. We would stay in the condos,
Mm-hmm.
and we could all just stay in the same area. We had extra space and things like that. The last couple of years, after the Highland did the renovation, you're staying in the hotel rooms, and I always
So
I always
nice as it gets.
judge a nice resort and a nice hotel room based on if there's a robe in there that I can just toss on and relax in, and that was between the champagne and the robe. You guys really upped the game specific to the Highlands in those hotel rooms.
Well, unfortunately, while we have nice rooms and I do get an opportunity to stay there, the champagne is not an employee benefit. Okay, so I can't cruise in there and get chocolate chip cookies or champagne.
Sure.
But we've done room upgrades at the Highlands. We've also done room upgrades to Chalet Edelweiss. Has a similar look. They're not exactly, but room upgrades everywhere. Big change this year too in the Inn at Bay Harbor is has been for over 20 years. It was flagged as a Marriott property, but it's no longer flagged as a Marriott property. It's part of the BOYNE Resorts portfolio now, and in doing so, we could only ever offer one golf package here. You could only ever do a stay and play. Well, that's not our most common package, and so we've seen huge increases even just year with people moving out of the Highlands and the mountain and moving to Bay Harbor to stay because it's right in the middle. The rooms are great. You're right on the lake. You have easy access to everything, which gives us more opportunities to sell rooms for golfers at the other two resorts. So it's working out really well.
I want to get into some of your, career highlights, favorite moments, everything, especially over the last, 10 years or so on the golf side of things. But I'd be curious, how much has it changed the average? We were talking before we even started here. How much has the average trip up to BOYNE changed? And that could be from an in-state person perspective, an out-of-state travel perspective, size of groups, the elevated experience of groups, women. I mean, there's so many different layers to that, but I guess how much has that evolved over the last 10?
Tremendous, and especially it's over 10, but really over the last 5. So
Right.
we can start with over the last 10, all things coming together, the easier access into Traverse City now. I mean, there are 20 U.S. cities, 22 airports, I think, fly in direct.
It's a great
I mean, you
airport,
can
too.
leave Boston and 2 hours later, you're in Traverse City in an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, you can leave Boston at 8 in the morning, you can have a 1 o'clock tee time. So why are people coming? We're also surprised with a single stop, you can fly from LA and either land in Denver or, no, it's a travel day each way. But I mean, the increased traffic from Southern California, from Arizona, Texas and Florida have always been, or for 10 years, they have been. Pure Michigan got behind that early, and Atlanta. So we've always drawn well. But we're really seeing big increases out of the Middle Atlantic and East Coast because, like, between DC and New York, there's 5 airports with direct flights now. Well, that's a pretty big population base. So they can all be there in an hour and a half and have a short drive and get up there. So
Game changer.
It's totally game changing. So that's kind of foundational because they wouldn't come if it was a 12-hour drive or if it was 2 plane flights to get there. You can even take it further. 2 years ago, we hosted IAGTO, the International Association of Golf Tour Operators. As we were planning for that, it was sitting with a group from the Caribbean and Spain, and it came up in conversation. A guy from Barcelona said, he goes, well, so how many connections do I have to make? And he goes, do I have to fly to Detroit or Chicago? And I said, well, you can if you want to visit those Midwest cities. I said, but if you really want to, you could fly to Boston or Newark, and an hour and a half later, instead of an hour and a half leg and an hour leg, I said, you could be in northern Michigan. He goes, you mean I can leave Barcelona, Spain, and with a single connect, I can be at BOYNE Mountain because I'm flying over the pond either way. But game changing, even for the airport authority to think of where their reach goes to now
Right.
with single connections. So that's obviously one thing. But yes, more women coming into the game, women and husbands playing together, 3 or 4 couples coming up together on a trip.
Families. Yeah.
Oh, families, and for families, BOYNE Mountain's a great opportunity because they've got the water park, you've got Deer Lake right back behind. They can stay there. So no, it's really been game changing. It's but foundationally, fundamentally, what's the difference or what puts us? And I was explaining to a writer the other day that, well, first of all, you've got to have great golf because you can't be compared to the Pinehurst and the Bandons and the Whistling Straits and the Greenbrier. If you don't have great golf, you're not even in a
It's
conversation.
the lifeblood. Yeah.
It's the lifeblood. and that's what makes it golf centric, but it's not a golf specific vacation. So you have all these other things you can do. You have the long days in northern Michigan. You have the great weather that we have in the summertime. And the local community is very welcoming. Either they were born there and they're welcoming, or they live downstate and they've moved up north because they like the lifestyle. Okay, give up a little of this, but have a lot more of this. And so they want to share their experiences. And, people time after time tell me how warm and welcoming. When you're on property, it's a little easier. We can train you to do that, but when you're off property, we can't. We encourage you to go out and experience northern Michigan because you'll want to come back even more, and it works.
On a personal level for you, what is the, I don't know, the few things, the one thing, if you can even pinpoint just one, but the things that you take the most pride in, in your time over the years with BOYNE and everything that's really gone into it?
Well, I am fortunate and have been the whole time there to work with really good teams, but the golf team is just outstanding. Over my career, I've worked with a lot of teams, led a lot of teams, and the way I explain it is all the oars are in the water driving in the same direction. When we sit down, it really, we have biweekly meetings year round with our golf revenue team for lodging and for group sales and operations. And it's really, how can we improve the guest experience? What are our best opportunities to sell discounted? The other big change is we're selling golf earlier than ever. We are in mid-March and we're probably less than 60 days away we're probably 50 days away from opening courses, and we're probably 60 days away from starting to sell next year.
Right.
Because people from all over plan earlier and they come in earlier. And so the whole clock and calendar has changed dramatically. But just being part of the team and making sure we're doing our part. The reservations team, our guest experience agents always laugh because our job's to make their phone ring.
Right.
Okay. And it's their job to actually make the sale, but it's our job to make the phone ring and to keep the phones ringing, and to hear people that then bring their friends and come back. I know what job our operational team are doing with the course and the experience. And I know what our food and beverage teams, our culinary teams are doing with those experiences. And I know how great the community is. My job is just to get them to come once, because if they come once, then they'll probably come back and they'll probably bring their friends.
Is there a favorite memory that you cling to? Could be a tournament, could be a group that came up to visit, could be an experience on your side that just has really stood out, for you over the years?
I think it was we worked 4 or 5 years to get that International Association of Golf Tour Operators in. When they came in, literally it's New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Korea, Spain, Germany, England, Scotland, the entire world, the Dominican Republic, South America, they were all there. And to have 300 international golf tour operators and vendors to come and stay and experience, they stayed at BOYNE Mountain because it's the biggest convention facility, but they played Bay Harbor. They also played at the Highlands. And to have 300 international golf, that these people go to nice golf courses all over the world, and to hear the accolades that they had the next year. We were named their golf operator of the year. So I think the biggest thing was the 4 or 5 years that our team put together, and culminated with them coming in a couple of years ago.
Well, and obviously, again, exciting news. We led with it. You're going to be stepping away and, riding off into the sunset, retiring, and hopefully spending more time being able to just play golf and enjoy and ski and do all the things you love. But I guess what went into the timing of the decision, and how excited are you to just take that step back?
Well, I'm real excited, but a lot of it, the timing of this goes to a lot of planning that BOYNE always does, right, as far as transitional, and it started back 3 or 4 years ago when Bernie Friedrich stepped down as senior vice president, and Josh was the new vice president. And Bernie and Josh and I are sitting there. Oh, and Josh wasn't named. Josh had to beat out a field because we advertised this nationally as a position. So he wasn't even after 25 years. Our DNA kind of is that you have 1 or 2 candidates internally that you think ought to get the job, and then you put it up against the national field. And if it's tie, the employee wins, or if the employee wins, the employee wins. If the employee loses, then Stephen Kutcher, our owner, goes back and says to our HR team, okay, what haven't we done to prepare this guy as well as we thought if we had this many better candidates? So we go to work on that. But at the end of the day, so Bernie and Josh and I are sitting in the office one day, and Josh says, well, now that we're working through this with Bernie, what about you? And I think the comment was, well, look, I don't have this burning desire. At the time I was 63. I said, I don't have a burning desire to retire at 65, but don't plan on seeing the whites of my eyes when I'm 70. and we laughed, and he goes, well, let's do this. Every 6 months for that since then, Josh and I have sat down and just talked about, okay, when is the time? Are you ready yet? When do you think you'll be ready? And it was about a year and a half ago now, I came to him and I said, hey, I think I have a date, or I have a timeline. Yeah. And so we talked about it. And so for the last year and a half, we've just worked through what that timeline in. And we're kind of in the interviewing steps right now. We've kind of got the field narrowed, and we're in the interviewing steps. And it's I should see, because you certainly want to see a strong candidate get the job.
Leave it in good hands.
Right. I want to see him bury what I did, okay, or what we did as a team. I certainly, I want to see him make it even better. I've been in situations where I left a job and had worked hard at it for a number of years, and then it went sideways. And there's nothing more crushing to see what you worked so hard collapse because it wasn't the right individual doing it. So, but knowing the resources that we have, knowing that the team that we have and the support that they're going to get, and just knowing the quality of the candidates that we're going to be interviewing over the next 2 weeks, I feel pretty good.
That's great. And then honestly, we can wrap up with this, I guess. What is the plan? What, or is it a non-planned plan is what you kind of hear a lot about, but what are you most looking forward to, once you're officially off the books in a way, if you will?
Oh, I have 2 grandkids now in the last year, and
Amazing.
That probably was a big trigger. But, spoiling grandkids like rotten, teaching grandkids to ski and golf and play. Their mom and dad are going to have to work hard. They're young. They're getting established in their careers. So I think grandma and grandpa have to be the ones that show these kids how to have fun. And so we're going to do our best to do that. Probably travel a little bit. Both winter and summer. My wife's at least a year away from retirement, so she's not there, but they have a winter sports business here in Metro Detroit. So in the summer, she's looking forward to me not having to work as much so that we can travel together. But I think that's the big part of the plans, and not sure exactly, have a home downstate here now. Not sure if we'll keep it, if we'll move to Colorado with the kids, or what we'll do. But just looking forward to, number one, spoiling grandkids.
I love it. Nobody more deserving. I lied. I'm going to ask you one more here. And this is going to be more career-focused advice, maybe for young people who are entering the workforce, or maybe are in the middle of their career and are thinking about, making the turn to something different. You obviously were on the ski side. You get to the golf side. Now you're making the turn to retirement. I'm just curious if there's any advice for young people who are just trying to figure it out, and maybe they started on one path, they go down any advice you would give?
I never thought when I took the job that I would be doing golf. In fact, I said to Bernie at one point, as we were talking about me taking over the golf responsibilities, and I said, Bernie, 10 years ago, would you have hired me to do golf marketing? He goes, hell no, you were a ski rep. Okay. But, he goes, but you've been doing it the last 3 years as an oversight, so now it's just yours to do. The biggest thing I would tell young people is do homework on the companies you're working for. It absolutely amazes me when we're interviewing people and they really don't know much about I know BOYNE has golf courses. Okay. So, let's just do that. And I'm like, what do you know on BOYNE outside of? Well, they had no idea that we were the largest privately held ski company, or the third biggest ski company in the U.S. behind Vail and Altera. So, the fact that really we have a strong 4-season foundational business that BOYNE has put together as a privately held company, and be a good teammate. The key to our success isn't because one of us, or you're as strong as your weakest link. Don't be the weakest link. Be the strongest link. And if everybody in that boat is trying to be the strongest link, you can do great things as a team.